Your ears do not deceive you. You have just entered the Cryptid Creator Corner, brought to you by your friends at Comic Book Yeti. So without further ado, let's get on to the interview.
Hello and welcome to Comic Book Yeti's Cryptid Creator Corner. I am one of your hosts, Jimmy Gasparo, and boy, do I have an exciting episode today. This is this young man's fifth time as a guest on the podcast.
Five
Uh,
timer club. I'm waiting
that's
for my jacket to come in the mail still, but I would
that's
have worked.
that's right. I don't know if we're doing jackets or T-shirts. I feel like we should definitely do something because that's rarefied air for somebody to have been on 5 times. But please welcome to the podcast, David Andry. David, how are you doing today?
Good, Jimmy. Still just getting up, and this cat won't leave me alone. But other than that, things are going well.
Oh, well, you just sit there and pet the cat, get some
Yeah,
Godfather vibes going, some
yeah.
Don Corleone,
I was thinking
you
of
know?
Doctor No or some kind of Bond villain look.
Oh, yeah. All right, so your new comic that we're talking about today is Estuary. It is coming out through Oni Press. It's you and Tim Daniel on writing duties. Maan House is the artist. Final order cutoff is March 16th. So, listeners, if you're listening to this within the first week it comes out, that FOC date, final order cutoff, is very important. It's the date by which comic shops have to get their orders in, and that's a big deal. So if you are listening to this and you want a copy of it, make sure you let your local shop know. But the book will be out April 8th. It's uh I've seen it described as a ghost story, a haunted house story. I don't know if it was the solicitor somewhere described it as a West Coast
Yeah.
kind of horror or haunted house story, which I have some questions about that. So I read the first issue. I really like the setup. Listeners on the podcast know, regular listeners, I've said this before at various times when the topic has come up, that I was raised Catholic, which whenever it's a sure identifier of somebody who doesn't practice anymore when they say I'm not,
Raised.
not that I am Catholic, I was raised Catholic, but I went to Catholic grade school, high school, college, and there's a very interesting religious undertone right off the bat from this that kind of piqued my interest. Um, and yeah, Man House's artwork is fantastic for this, like a little shadowy. I really love how he did all the scenes on the water, because your main character Maris is kind of like an underwater archaeologist, I think she's described, and those scenes on the boat were great. Really loved those. I loved all the background details, especially with the when we first meet the nun, and there always seems to be something going on like in the background, like just behind Maris. But why don't you give listeners kind of like a rundown of what Estuary is about?
Yeah, I think you hit on a lot of the good parts of it, and definitely being raised Catholic, that is a big part of this book. That you'll see as the series unfolds. That is definitely a central theme. Faith and maybe lack of faith, and yeah, it's our protagonist Maris has been hired to find a shipwreck off the coast that they think might have some Catholic relics in it that would be good for this this California mission. And I don't know, as a California kid, that's a term we heard a lot growing up, was the missions, and where the Spanish came and set up forts basically and converted the native population and did their thing. Um, and you had to build one as a kid. Like, that was every like fourth grader built a California mission out of popsicle sticks or something. So it's kind of, I think that's why people are referring to it as a West Coast horror, because very, very, very much embedded in the West Coast of California. Like the
Okay, so that was like a
Monterey.
fourth grade project, like.
Yeah, everybody did it. Like, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you all made a mission, and like most of us went to Sutter's Fort, which was established during the Gold Rush, I believe, and uh, you know all these things were kind of just part of growing up as Catholic in California. So I think that's why that West Coast horror really fits. We didn't come up with that. Somebody, I think it was one of the first reviewers that I had sent out the comic too called it a West Coast horror. I'm like, that is just a perfect descriptor. Um, and so Maris joins up with a ship captain, a little charter captain, Hunt, to help her go out and find this shipwreck. And it turns into a love story, a horror story, a ghost story. It's a mystery at heart too, so it makes it a little bit challenging to talk about anything past issue one, because there's going to be a lot of reveals. And I think you already picked up on a lot of the vibes that something's always going on behind Maris in the background. And as you finish the series and come back and read it again, um,
So
a
are
lot of
you
stuff.
are you haunted, David?
Yes,
I don't
that
know.
was a
I don't
that
know if
was
that
that was the cat
I'm not
knocking stuff over in the background. Yes.
I'm not editing that out.
No, I
I'm
think
gonna leave
I
that
think most
in.
hauntings. I would say most hauntings are cats for sure.
Oh, okay.
um,
Um,
yeah, and so I'm gonna get rid of her real quick. Come here.
don't worry, listeners. David's just removing the cat from the room. He's not doing anything untoward with the cat. All right,
They want to
the
be
cat
with
has
you.
now been.
Yeah, has been
Oh,
exiled. They want to be with you
yeah.
desperately until they don't, and then she howls outside the door. I'm like, oh, it'll be better just to leave her in here. She'll just chill, and she did not chill. So,
Well,
so yeah,
that's all right.
there's definitely a
So
lot
so go
of
ahead.
mystery and a little bit of romance in this that we wanted to throw in there too. So, it's kind of a love story plus a haunted, maybe not house, but maybe haunted mission story.
I was curious when I read that line, the West Coast horror story, and you've already mentioned a couple of things about growing up in California. And I'm glad we're talking about this now. I just returned from California. I was in San Diego
Oh
and then
yeah.
Pasadena and Anaheim, a nice week away from work. Well, part of it was like a work conference, but had a very nice time in California. I've not been to California in like 20 years, so it was great to get back to California. San Diego was beautiful. Got to see a friend in some friends in Pasadena, which was awesome. And so now we're here. We're talking about this. I'm just kind of curious. How much do you think growing up in California um, has shaped you as a writer and your writing? Because you'll hear certain writers or creators talk about, whether or not you're writing books or television or movies, whatever the medium you're working in is, that the geography of where they grew up has an impact on how they developed as a writer. Do you think that there are certain things about your writing that speaks to you being a California kid, as you said?
I think 100%. And Tim also grew up in the same area. We both grew up. He was more of a Bay kid, and I'm more of a Central Valley kid. Um, so I grew up in a very diverse, area, and Central Valley, California has a lot of farmland, and so we have a lot of um, you know people there that own farms and people there that work farms, and all those people went to school together, and being around California too, you're exposed to so many different climates. You went to San Diego and you'll go to a nice sandy, beautiful beach. But where I'm from in central Northern California, you go to the beach and it's rocks and it's harsh and it's cold, and the ocean falls off quickly into this deep, deep, like scary place. It's not like going to the beach was not like cool when you are going to like Bodega Bay or even Monterey. You're not going, there's surfers there, but there's not like you don't sunbathe and hang out. It was a very different experience growing up with our kind of beach land. But yeah, I think we always Tim and I is always are thinking of geography. The setting is part of is like a character, definitely in what we write. And in Crush Step, the setting was this sub underwater. In Morning Star, the setting was where Tim lives now in Montana, and a national forest that he's been to many times. And in this one, the setting is kind of like a Monterey, where we both spent tons of time, and you get a feel for the place, and the place has a mood, and that setting helps, like, amplify, I think, the horror or the creepiness or whatever, 'cause, um, these places are really overcast a lot of the times. It's not beautiful sunny San Diego. It's overcast, there's fog, there's microclimates and little areas where you'll be in rain, and then you'll come through the rain and it'll be sunny and bright and beautiful, and then the fog will come in. And it's this very very specific kind of mood that you get from the setting of this story and other stories that I've worked on. I think it definitely makes a difference growing up where I spent time in a valley, in the mountains, in the ocean on a fairly regular basis because everything is so close to where I live. You can go to San Francisco in an hour and a half. You can go to Tahoe in an hour and a half. You can go to Yosemite in a couple hours. You have all these different places and my parents were big road trippers, so we would just drive everywhere, driven all over
Okay.
this place. Yeah.
I mean, as road trippers, like every summer, like a vacation, or like a couple times a year.
Well, probably every summer we did something, but every other summer when I was a kid, we had a family reunion, and it was my mom's side of the family, which is spread out everywhere except for California. They're in Texas and Louisiana, Mississippi, and Ohio and New York. And we would drive. And so we drove to Arkansas, we drove to Colorado, we drove to Kentucky. We drove all across the country, and
Yeah.
so you got to kind of see everything from the side of from the back of a station wagon, facing in the way back, or sleeping for the first half of the trip. Well, yeah, you would go to Yellowstone. We went to Tahoe a bunch, and San Francisco, of course, and Santa Cruz, which is kind of the nicest kind of beachy kind of thing you'll get up here. But yeah, it pretty quickly gets rocky and cold, and um, I like the California coast. It's I don't know, it's perfect for having a little place with a fire and like walking on the beach with a little bit of mist and a little bit of fog, and it's creepy and weird with you have the cypress trees that grow like crooked because of constant uh the constant onshore wind, and so it's a very, very specific place. Um
Yeah.
and so we tried to kind of put that into the book as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's very I felt very atmospheric, like, I felt the atmosphere of it, like, reading it, I really there was a lot to it that I felt was, centered about the place, whereas and maybe that's why I get the sense of, like, haunted house or haunted mission, because you think of a haunted house story, which the place of it, it's not like a slasher film where they follow you around, or not like some other type of horror or mystery or suspenseful where the setting maybe doesn't matter. It's more character driven, or the mystery of it. Like, this feels very much like the place where this is happening is kind of important.
And
And I
the
felt
and
that reading it.
Yeah, and it's the age of it too. Like, again, 300, 400 years of history. You don't get that in a lot of places in America in general. You live in an area that does have some pretty old structures, but a big swath of the country doesn't have anything that's more than 100 years old, right? And so,
Yeah.
like, this part of California is the only part where you get this deep, deep, deep kind of history where you can think, "Oh, there are definitely spirits here. There's definitely history. There's been death here. There's been terrible things that have happened here. There's the ground is blood soaked." Um, so it that all played a part in choosing of the location, and then the location helping choose the story that you're going to write. It's all weaved together. We couldn't tell this story in a different location.
Okay. When you are, plotting out and putting stuff and pitches together for like the different books that you've done, Um, do you think about, like, the kind of like the order or trajectory of your work, or is it just like, as somebody who's, you know, freelancing it, like, I
Yeah.
just wanna see something get picked up. I'm
Yeah.
not thinking about, "Oh, is it weird that I'm following up Estuary with following up Red Vector with Estuary.
Right.
Is
Right.
there any sense of that to how you work?
Um, so I think the only time we really thought about that was we had our Mad Cave deal, and that was a 3-book deal. And when we pitched to Mad Cave, we wanted to give them a variety. We wanted to give them, okay, this is what we can do with horror. This is what we can do with like sci-fi, and this is what we can do with, body horror or whatever. We wanted to give them a little bit of variety. They fortunately picked all 3 that we had pitched them, but there definitely was thought about, and for me, there's always, Tim loves horror, and so he'll always come back around to horror, and I'm always trying to pull us to like fantasy or sci-fi. And so there was that active thought of like, okay, I mean, if I get pigeonholed as a horror writer, fine, I'll write horror for the rest of my career if someone gives me a book. But a lot of my happy places in sci-fis and fantasy is in a little bit of comedy. And so do we have those pitches too? It just kind of happenstance. The ones that kind of we felt the most prepared for, the most ready for, have been the ones that we have presented. So
Yeah.
we're always in the process of like, I pitched Tim 2 different ideas the last 2 weeks, and he liked them both, and one probably is firmly in kind of creatures, not really kind of like horror, and one is like, sci-fi, and so, we'll kind of pitch each other stuff, and whatever one either one of us can't stop thinking about or really wants to work on is the one that wins. So, a lot of that will be like, uh, you know, things with the horror element. Like I like things that are dramatically exciting, and that a lot of times leads things to be scary. I always like Aliens as the movie, and like Predator, and those kind of, and those are definitely, you could quantify them as sci-fi, you can put them in as action, or you could put them in as horror, right? So
Yeah. Oh,
um
sure.
I always like things that have a little bit of edge to them. So yeah, we'll
Yeah.
always kind of fall in those camps. In in this case, there was a very specific ask from Oni. Oni kind of came out because Tim's relationship with Bess, our editor, she kind of reached out to us and said, you know, we want to work with you, and maybe you guys want to work with Man House. And when you put those kind of things together, it's like, okay, this is gonna be a horror story, because Man is just so great at like the darks and the shadows and the mood. He really leads you into this kind of horror realm. And that kind of, for this particular project, really shaded the our choices with the pitch.
Okay. Yeah. And especially Man was great in terms of the transition as well. And I don't know how much of that was like in the writing and then in terms of how Man interpreted it, but I mean, I call like I call it like a cold open, or what, the opening
Yeah.
of the comic. We don't, and at the end of the first issue, I'll just say that you still don't really know a whole lot about what the opening is about. But there is like a great transition from what we see to Maris kind of lighting candles and in the I guess the chapel of the mission, um, and praying. And you understand that Faith is a part of this because of her conversation with the sister that comes to talk to her. And it's a very interesting conversation, kind of about Faith, about we find Maris like trying to pray, I think is how she phrases it, as if,
Yeah.
it's not just you see sometimes, or the aspect of, well, I don't know if my prayers are being heard or if they're being answered, but we see it from a slightly different perspective than that, where she seems to be struggling with, engaging in the act of prayer itself, which I found, kind of fascinating. There's certainly some type of, it informs us as a reader. There's certainly some type of backstory here,
Yeah.
and which gets, and she has this very interesting conversation with Sister. I can't remember. It's a B with a D, I think.
Darcy,
Well,
I
the
believe.
Darcy, yeah. Yeah, so with sister Darcy, and then there's some more interesting things that I don't want to spoil that happen later on in issue one. But I mean, I really like that dynamic and that aspect of it. I really like the flirtatious nature of Maris's and Hunt's relationship, like right off the bat when they're on the boat. And and he calls her Stella Maris, which also has like religious implications, of course. So there's all these things happening that I was very intrigued by and uh just really kind of got into the mystery of it and what is this wreck that she's diving for about, like why does the sister know about it, what is she looking for exactly. Yeah, I really enjoyed it,
Yeah.
really liked it.
And you're asking all the right questions because all that stuff will be answered.
Oh,
But
good.
yeah, it definitely, I definitely wanted to set Maris up as someone who is, struggling with that faith, right? That was a very specific choice of words that she was, trying to pray. She's not pray. She doesn't know if she's praying or not. She doesn't know if she's doing it right. Is someone who's been raised Catholic and has gone through those motions her whole life, but maybe not fully believed anything. And now she's reaching out for some kind of lifeline in a difficult time. And, I think we can all, uh, kind of relate to trying to find something, in this world gone crazy that they can kind of hold on to and have some comfort. And so that's her at that moment trying to reach out and figure out like, hey, was all this stuff that I learned as a kid, worth it? Does it have any value? And yeah, some of that will be explored through the series.
Oh, nice. Someone that because you grew up in California, as you talked about. Were you someone that loved like being out on the water, like were being out on boats? Like, have you ever gone snorkeling, scuba diving? Have you ever dove a wreck? Have you ever done any of that?
I have I've gone snorkeling in the ocean exactly one time, and I had a near panic attack and got the F out of there because it was completely overwhelming. And one, I could see too much and I couldn't see enough. And,
Okay.
you're dipped in this 360-degree world that you're not used to paying attention to all these locations and positions. You have to look, not just scan the horizon for danger. You got to look down, up, behind you constantly. And it was off La Jolla Cove in San Diego, which is like
Oh,
a
okay.
very peaceful, easy places to and I'm like, "I'm fucking out of here. I'm gone." And yeah, it took me all about 20 minutes to have a full-blown panic attack and then leave.
Oh,
And
wow.
and I've gone water skiing in the bayou with snapping turtles and alligators. And my parents, like my family, like I said, is from the South and spread out. Well, my grandparents on my dad's side are from Mississippi and Louisiana. And when my grandpa would take us out, he didn't want to go very far in his boat, so we just went into the backyard, which they had a boat launch in the backyard that went to the bayou, and you could get out to the Gulf of Mexico in about 15 minutes. And he would just tool us around basically his neighborhood, and it was like water skiing in a street. It was only like 30 feet wide, and there's logs and stuff everywhere. And you just did it enough till you fell one time or you got tired, and then he took you back in. It was like a 20-minute, uh, 20-minute, water skiing adventure. And then when you fell,
Oh, wow.
you're like, "Come get me, come get me, come get me," because you're afraid of water moccasins and snapping turtles and garfish and whatever else is lurking in the, like, murky depths of the bayou. So yeah, I've been in, yeah, obviously we went through crush depth and now we're back in the water with estuary,
Yes.
and I'm
Yeah.
still freaked out by it. So yeah, the water,
Well,
uh and you'll see in the first issue, there is some, you get you get into this Monterey Bay water, and it could be so murky and so silty that you can't see a foot in front of your face. And it's not like, you know, going to the Caribbean and Virgin Islands, and this crystal clear water. You can see everything. Something could sneak up right behind you, and you would never know.
Yeah, there was a certain I was thinking about crush depth because there is a certain aspect of like claustrophobia, being in the submarine, being being surrounded by dark water. That there's something there. I mean,
Yeah.
I have self-diagnosed myself with, I think it's, thalassophobia.
Hmm.
Thalassophobia is the fear of deep, water,
Yeah.
and, so I've gone in the ocean before, but I don't know that I could ever, like, scuba dive a a wreck or,
Yeah.
something like that. I've gone snorkeling, and it's funny, I've gone snorkeling off of St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands
There you
where
go.
it's just beautiful. I've gone snorkeling in Hawaii, and the water is, you can see the bottom. It's really beautiful, and I've calmed myself enough that I could have a good time with it. And I saw some sea turtles, I saw some stingrays, I saw a bunch of fish, but my brother, and perfect time now to shout out Bobby, the
Hey,
Cryptid
Bobby.
Creator Corners, Cryptid Creator Corners number one most dedicated
Number one
fan.
fan.
Number 1, Bobby listens to all my episodes. So Bobby got he's a real jerk because he had a destination wedding and made us all go to Aruba
Oh
so
God.
he could get married. And we went snorkeling off of Aruba, but we went in, like, deep water, and they told us I don't know how far down it was, but, like, if you look down while you were snorkeling, like, just in the depths, you could see a a ship that I think had sunk during World War II. You could just see the outline of it, and I'm like, "I've been snorkeling before, this should be fine. I know it's deeper than anywhere I've been snorkeling before," but just seeing the outline of that wreck, I mean, I was like Shaggy and Scooby, where I popped up and I think I just ran on
Right on
tiptoes
top.
across the water to get back to the boat.
Yeah. Yeah, and Monterey too has this really quick shelf that just drops deep almost immediately after the so people don't like snorkeling and swimming there is very dangerous because you're getting these deep, deep currents. And yeah, I feel like it's almost like this, like you said with crush depth, it's this claustrophobia of being in an enclosed space and nothing but, things that can kill you outside that space. But this is removing that metal and still having everything around you that could kill you. It's almost like I don't know, like a reverse claustrophobia where there's too much space and there's too much like an agoraphobia. There's too much space. There's too many things around you. There's too many directions something could come at you. And
Yeah,
yeah, try to really harness some of that for the diving scenes in this book.
yeah. Um, were you, concerned at all when you and Tim were putting, like, the first issue together in terms of how much to kind of tease what the overall mystery is and how much you wanted to hold back? How did you kind of that's a kind of a fine line because it's a first issue. First issues are big because you want somebody to come back for issue 2. So how
Right.
did you solve that problem? I think you did a nice job because there was plenty of meat on the bone for me where I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I wanna see issue 2. I wanna know what she's looking for." There were enough questions that I could ask, but kind of did you have any concern with that, and how did you, how did
100%.
you do what
Yeah,
you did?
yeah, this was a lot of long conversations about how much do we show, how much, do you tell, and there should be a lot of things that are there that you can go back later and read deeper into and see why maybe certain people are having the reactions they're having and why certain people are doing certain things. Um, and yeah, that was you tried to give hints through maybe the art of what you can see and what you can't see and how people are interacting and things like that. But there's definitely stuff that we wanted to make sure we teased enough to feel like you weren't getting cheated. Like there wasn't some big, oh, there's no way anybody could see this twist coming. And also not like spell it out for you in issue one. So that is that is really hard. I'm not a I don't consider myself a mystery writer. Like I'm not writing the next Glass Onion or something like that. I can't. My brain doesn't really work that way. I don't try to figure out mysteries while I'm watching them on TV. I'm just like, cool, let's see what happens. So there was a lot of discussion about, okay, let's put this here. Let's not have them say this yet, and let's move that to maybe the second or third issue, to make sure that we're not giving it all away in the first issue, but also not being so obscure that when people see the twist, they're gonna go, well, that was dumb. That was just he was a vampire the whole time, and it's like, oh no, that's not what's gonna happen.
Yeah. What is it like with the show Lost? Like they were in purgatory the whole time. We
Yeah,
knew it.
haha. It makes sense,
Who's I
sure.
whose I do love Lost, but I know that was a criticism of it. Who whose idea was it to have the tour group of in the beginning of the book, the tour group and the mission at the back? Because I thought, yeah, this is just what would happen, and they're leading their tour, and I'm like, oh, but it's I mean, a little bit of attention is called to it, but it's like, oh, one of the nuns is like leading the tour group, and then it's referenced like later on that like they have like Pilates like
Yeah.
certified, I think, Pilates instructor nuns,
Yes.
and they're all everyone in the tour group's excited about mimosas, and I'm like, yes, of course. But I thought the certified Pilates instructor nuns was a nice touch. Who did that?
I believe that was me. I'm pretty sure that was me. Yeah, I wanted to be like this, uh, you know, we are gonna weave a lot of social media stuff kinda into this story. Strangely enough, it is kind of like a kind of a call out to our, social media heavy, like how libraries are using social media to advertise themselves, how museums and everything, and it's like this new kind of world, and almost disrespectful to the places you go to not be present in them, and to just be there for the clicks and the likes. And you see all these like beautiful places or places where tragedies happened, and you're just there taking selfies. And I guess it's a little bit of my old man coming out that, you should be there and you should be present and you should be respectful, like you're walking, basically they're walking through a graveyard taking selfies. And I think we may fall into that trap too sometimes when you're just looking at cool places to go visit, and you're doing it for the cool picture you're going to post later, instead of being just there and present, and even being respectful of maybe the lives that were lost there, and understanding the history of where you are, and the terrible things that might have been done where you're standing. And I don't know. I think a little bit of that is coming out in this, a little bit of my old man grumpiness. But yeah, I wanted to come up with as many stupid sister nun activities as I could, because they're trying to get in, they're trying to get that tourist money. This is not something people would normally go to if they weren't forced to go there for school. So they're pushing into the 21st century, here in Estuary. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I just thought it was it was a little funny in terms of the Pilates instructors nuns, but no, I do get your point. I mean, I remember it was probably 10 maybe 10 years ago or so. I remember reading an article about I think she was like some type of influencer who like posted a selfie of herself like at either like Dachau or Auschwitz, like
Oh
a
yeah.
Nazi concentration camp, and it's just like what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like what are you doing? Um but yeah, the idea of you're in these like historical reverent places, or like you said, places that are essentially like terrible tragedies happen,
Yeah.
and yeah, you're concerned with the social
Yeah.
media,
Let's shoot our video. Let's do a TikTok
yeah,
here.
influencer of it all. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I just thought there's a lot of little interesting things that I very much I very much enjoyed. So if I had a question and I was just thinking about because of some of like your other books and some of your other protagonists that you have had. If you were to investigate a mystery or to try and tackle something like like Maris is there any of your characters from some of your other books that you would definitely want with you, like by your side,
Mm. I
like
think,
from any of your other books? Because I know
yeah.
what my answer would be. I'm curious if you had one.
Well, I think, oh geez, Farsine from Red Vector is like the smartest person on this planet. So, I would definitely want a little bit of his brain power, and maybe Charlie from Morningstar, for his unique type of creativity. I think those two for sure.
Okay. 'Cause, uh, I was, um, I was thinking that, like, I would want Beck from Resident.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah. If you wanted some ass kicked, for sure. Yeah,
I think when
Beck is the kind of like the gold standard, I think, for protagonists. I mean, she took over that series for sure, and
Yeah.
anybody who can jury together a flamethrower during the apocalypse kind of deserves some respect.
Yeah, I agree. Well, she was smart too, so,
Yeah.
um but, yeah, I was just thinking about that. Speaking of Resident, I wanted to tell you that when I was out in California, I was visiting my friend, Keith and his wife, Jill, um, and Keith is in the entertainment industry. He was on TV, and now he's still on TV, and he directs television, and so I was asking him about that, and he was asking me about comics, and I was like, Have you read like any like recent comics?" And he's like, "No, not really." I said, "Oh, well, let me send you some." So I put together when we got back home, I put together a care package of comics that I thought Keith would like. Um, and I included the full series of Resonant in the box.
Nice.
So hopefully, I think Keith will enjoy that. But I was trying to think what the stuff that Keith would be into and put together. I got some Resonant, some Philadelphia,
Oh,
the
nice.
first volume of Bitterroot. So I think he'll be occupied for a little bit. But yeah, had to include Resonant. I think he'd really like it. So just wanted to let you know that I was thinking of you when I was
Thank you.
sending
Appreciate it.
him his comic care package.
Yeah, that
Um,
seems to be one that kinda still has legs, that still people kinda discover and kinda message me about, like, "Man, I really like that." I'm like, "Oh, cool." It's nice that, my first thing is still a good thing.
yeah, it is it's nice that your first thing is still a good thing. I like that.
Well, they always
It's
tell you, like, "Oh, your first thing's gonna suck." I'm like, "Okay, well, that's terrible to hear. Well, here's my first thing." Uh, you'll get better and hopefully I'm getting better. But I don't know. I that your first thing, you have so much time to think about it, and so much time. It's like your first album as a musician, right? It's that second album that usually people go, "Oh, that's their worst," and then they start to slowly climb back up because you have so much time to mess around on that first thing. There's no deadlines, and you're writing it for yourself. You're not writing it um in any idea that it's at that time that it was going to get made into anything. So there's a lot of like freedom and time you can spend on that first thing, and you can really fidget with it and, make it, as perfect as possible. And, unfortunately, sometimes your later stuff is under a deadline and you can't go back as many times as you want. And it comes out how it comes out. And, I try to make everything good, but yeah, it's nice that the first thing is still decent.
yeah. Well, I mean, you've been on the podcast that like 5 times, so 5 times. So I
Man.
I'm a big fan. I mean, if I didn't like your stuff, it'd be
Yeah,
like
that's right.
exhausting.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
I didn't
Oh God, I gotta
like,
talk to
oh
this guy.
God, I
Yeah.
told I'd be like messaging Byron. It's like, "Ah, I told David I'd have him on again."
Well, I keep
Um,
trying to make everybody happy. Keep trying to write
there
good
you go.
books. I mean, that's really all you're trying to do the whole time is write something good, you know?
Yeah.
And we're not trying to hit some invisible mark, we're not trying to check some boxes, but Tim and I are just writing stuff that we love, and um hopefully people like it, Um we
Yeah.
just,
I mean, I like the 3 books you did at Man Cave, that you were on talking about, and they're as you said, they're all a little different. I think Morningstar is another one I tell people about because when like some folks are like, "Oh, they still make comics and what are they like?" And Morningstar is one that I think has a little bit of that touch of nostalgia
yeah.
and it's a weird book. It's a weird good book that it's like, yeah, you have no idea what this is going to be, but it's a really good story. Marco's art is like next level,
Yeah.
and it's just one that I really, really love.
Yeah, if people wonder like, "Oh, how much of this is Tim and how much of this is David?" The weirder it is, the more it's Tim, the more normal and, like, straightforward it is, the more it's me. So, it's a nice balance because he pulls me over from being just a straightforward, like, linear storyteller, which is,
Okay,
how I fall into storytelling. It's just like, this
yeah,
happens, and this happens, and this happens, and Tim's like, "Well, what if we did this, and this flashback happened here, and this hap" here. I'm like, "What? Okay." And I'll trust you and just start writing. So, yeah, Tim is definitely pulling me to the weird parts, which I really enjoy.
yeah. I mean, I think it works. Your writing partnership definitely works. So I mean, the books have been phenomenal, and it is an interesting like push and pull in terms of that dynamic. But um, yeah, I can't wait to see, where this goes, and I know it's kinda tough to tease
Yeah.
anything with, like, a 4-issue mystery, but, the first issue was great, so
Yeah, and that's a giant size first issue. So I think it's 28 pages instead of 22 pages. So we get to spend a little bit more time with like setting things up. And like I said, first issues are hard because you want to give enough and not give away everything. You want people to come back for the second issue. You don't want it to be a ton of just exposition and talking, but try to make the relationship interesting because that's kind of the heart of the book and the mystery appealing to come back and kind of figure out what's going on. And like I said, that cold open, we will come back around to that cold open. I promise. That's not just something to get you to pick up the book, but it's a very cool first 3 pages. I love the first
Oh,
three pages of this book.
it
Yeah,
definitely is. It
yeah.
definitely is, so
That was, that was very fun. That was kind of, we knew exactly how this book was gonna start from the beginning.
oh, awesome. Awesome. Well, David, thank you for coming on the podcast
Hey,
again. We'll get your address. We'll send you the jacket
the
or
5
T-shirt,
timers,
whatever.
okay.
The 5 timers,
Yeah.
whatever we're gonna do. But I feel like we should definitely do something. Because I like I said, there's only been a few that have had 5 or more appearances, and oddly enough, I think 3 of them are David's, which is just really weird. Because I think out of our I think looking back, I think the person who's been on the most is probably Steve Fox,
I know,
because
I'm coming for Steve Fox. I'm coming for you.
Yeah, Byron's interviewed Steve. I haven't at all, but Byron's interviewed him like a number of times, like maybe 7 or 8 he's been on.
Yeah.
And then I really think our next 3 people are like you, David Pepos, and
If
David Boer.
that makes sense. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
and
we
I think you're all California guys
yeah.
too, or at least
Yeah, yeah,
now.
yeah, they're both LA, and, yeah, we've had jokes about how many Davids there are in comics. I was
I
one year
know.
at Cape and Cowl Con in Oakland, there was 4 Davids within touching distance of each other in 1 row. It was me and David Baker and David Boer and David Brothers, and it's like, there's so many Davids here.
So many
So that's
Davids.
why I have the DB in my name, so people can just, "Oh, that's not a David, that's a DB."
That's yeah, you do. You do have that, but, well, listeners, Estuary, Oni Press, final order cutoff is March 16th. Let your shop know. But hey, even if you're listening to this and it's past final order cutoff, still let your shop know that you want it. 4 issues. Issue 1 will be out April 8th. It's a really interesting mystery series. Maan House's artwork is phenomenal, and especially if you were raised Catholic,
Yeah.
or uh, and you like underwater archaeology, mystery, ghost stories, like anything in along those lines. I think you're going to like, even if you like really, kind of character driven, uh, suspenseful. This is for you as well. It's a very interesting first issue that I really dug. So, David, thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming back on the podcast again.
Anytime. Yes, I'll
All
be
right.
here for number 6. And there's 3 different, I think, orderable covers. So Tim has a cover. So the kind of the blue nun cover is Tim's. So I would really love for people to order a lot of Tim's cover, because it's pretty cool that my co-writer gets to have a cover in our book. Uh, so look at the different
Yeah, that's
covers that
awesome.
are available. There's a couple of like ratio incentive covers, but the ones that I think A, B, and C are all orderable directly from Lunar. Uh, so get those orders in.
All right. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Go.
Thank you, listeners. Thank you for listening. Rate, review us, doing that stuff they tell you to do for podcasts. It really does help us a lot. You can find me on Blue Sky. Let me know what you're reading, especially if you're reading any of David's books. I really would like to hear from you. And yeah, thank you so much. And thanks for listening. I'll see you next time. Good
Bye,
night.
Bobby.